So we thought, you know what, for this standard to actually take off, it needs to be interoperable among multiple data platforms so that customers ultimately have choice.
Welcome to episode 37 of It's About Data. Our guest this time is Justin Borgman, CEO of Starburst. All right, Justin Borgman, you're the CEO of Starburst. Welcome to the show. Really appreciate you taking the time. Why don't you kick things off by telling us a little bit about Starburst's journey?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Great to be with you both. So Starburst is a data platform company. We were founded in 2017 as the company behind an open source project that is today known as Trino. And it had its roots at Facebook. It's how Facebook does a lot of their data warehousing analytics, both in a lake, meaning on top of Hadoop or object storage, as well as being able to federate queries into other data sources. And so that's how we got our start 8 years ago. And today we continue to do that, but this has become actually increasingly important in the era of AI because AI is fundamentally a data story at the end of the day. And part of what Starburst provides is access to all of the data that an enterprise may have in a governed, secure, and access controlled manner. And so increasingly, we're seeing customers build their agents and their applications on top of Starburst, in addition to the traditional BI and ad hoc SQL workloads that we've done forever.
So this is what I kind of like to dive into here is really like what's really changed now, and especially what you folks are really talking about with what we call model to data. So what's really changed? What does this vision really mean, and what does it involve?
Yeah. Well, from the earliest days of our founding, part of what made us a bit different from other players in the data ecosystem was this federated query capability, which, for any of your listeners who may not be familiar, means that you can essentially write a query that will go and access more than one data source and join the results and provide the results as part of that query. So it gives you this tremendous power to really query the data wherever it lives and bring that compute to the data, if you will. I think now in the AI era, what that means is, again, that access to all of the data that an enterprise might have without having to run it through traditional ETL processes and centralize it all into one singular data store. You now have all of that at your fingertips. So you can, build your agentic application, leverage Starburst for the querying and the data processing, and then pass on the results to an LLM of your choosing. And what we find actually with a lot of our customers is many of them are using more than one LLM as well. So there are multiple models at play here, and being able to ensure that the right data is going to the right model and ultimately making its way back to the right user, is important from a governance, privacy, and security perspective.
So let me ask this. Actually, I'll frame this first. So over the past year, MCP has absolutely blown up, like one of the most quickly adopted technologies ever, I would say. The alternate vision here would be just connect MCP to all your data sources. Don't worry about federation. From your perspective, like what is the difference? Like, why is your vision advantageous? I suspect it has something to do with governance and access controls and other really basic things.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Because you're right. An alternative approach would be leverage the individual MCP servers of each of these different data sources. They're all going to have MCP. Like that's not unique or special. Every database you can imagine will have some kind of MCP interface that you can connect to. But rather than building an agent that has to go then talk to all of these different MCP servers individually, and manage the access controls and the privileges of each of those data sources, it's going to be a lot easier, a lot faster, and I think a lot more secure to go through something like Starburst, where we provide that governance, that role-based and attribute-based access control at the query level as that query comes in, sort of at the runtime. And then we go out and perform the query execution across those data sources. So you're going to one MCP server, which would be Starburst, rather than 4 or 5 or however many different data sources you have.
Right. But let's now kind of take this up a notch. Now, there's several different ways we could take this discussion, but let's first especially put the A word, and by that I mean agents.
Okay.
Just to clarify for the audience there. So when you're having agents that are each taking these sort of autonomous actions and decisions, this is not a rules-based workflow by any stretch or means. How does that really, impact this, and how do you basically deal with that?
Yeah. Yeah. So, the agents themselves, should have some, business logic that you've built into it in terms of what they're going to do with the data. But the data access is really the role that we want to play there. We want to be sort of the data dealer, if you will, to the agents that our customers build. And to really highlight this, we've actually built our own agent. It's effectively a data analyst co-pilot type of agent where you can interact via natural language, and we'll automatically turn that into SQL queries that get executed against Starburst on the back end. Now, commensurate with that, we have the role-based access controls, the attribute-based access controls, the query auditing, the data lineage, so you can see exactly how those queries took place, what data they accessed for audit purposes or what have you. But also, a big part of our platform that customers leverage in these circumstances is what we call data products, which is basically creating a curated set. You can think of it like a view of your data that is curated for the task or the use case at hand. So you may have a particular data product that actually spans multiple data sources, but it's this curated governed view that now that is what is ultimately going to pass on to your LLM. So you're ensuring that the data is high quality, it's the right data, we're going to avoid hallucination. And then we include with those data products business metadata, so the business context of what this data actually means. And that becomes really important as people work towards this semantic layer concept in their data ecosystem.
My understanding is that in the past, Starburst has really gotten behind the data mesh concept, where you move the maintenance, production, transformation, quality management, governance of analytics data into individual teams, often into individual microservice teams. Do agents have a role to play there? And what are the limits of that approach?
Yeah, great question. And you're right. We were very excited about data mesh when it first came on the scene years ago. It is why we call this component of our product data products. That is a reference to the data products of data mesh, and really thinking about data as a product. And to answer your question around agents, I think over time, yes, I think over time you're going to have agents talking to agents. And when you think about it in that way, decentralization and democratization, even of the creation of agents themselves, each performing a very specific individualized function, is super interesting. I think the way that this is likely to play out in enterprises is much the way that we have sort of very specialized humans doing very specific tasks. I think you'll have highly specialized agents performing tasks, and they need to be able to interact and work with each other. And again, I think that's likely the world that's going to evolve. And so we're architecting our platform to really be ready for that sort of multi-agent, universe of the future.
So let's take this a step further, which is that I love what we're hearing. I'm sure you're hearing this too. So I'm getting a lot of vibes just from my ears to the ground that semantics and ontologies are starting to become really. I mean, our colleague Cindy Howson put together a piece recently about semantics becoming sexy again. This was in conjunction with the Open Semantics. Is it interchange initiative? I forget what this is the latest.
Interchange.
How many OSIs have we had in my life? Okay, this is the latest OSI. And so I want to ask a double question. Part of which is that basically that Starburst, you folks have recently announced basically that basically in alignment, basically endorsing OSI. So I'd like to ask first off what that means to you, and then go to the more general question of the role of where semantics is going to play, and how Starburst is, how are you looking at working with the semantic tier? Is that something which you folks are going to be providing, or is this where you'd be working with other, tools or technologies? So take me through both of the OSI and the semantics, question.
Sounds good. And first of all, I would agree with Cindy Housen on the idea that semantics are super important, particularly now in the context of AI, because it ultimately allows agents to understand the meaning of the data that they're working with, and even more important for them to have shared understanding as those agents potentially interact with each other. So the mission really of the Open Semantic Interchange, OSI, is to establish a vendor-neutral open specification that allows for interoperability between these respective platforms. And the reason that we jumped on board is because, A, we think that's really important. What we saw initially in the first announcement when Snowflake announced it was that they were the only data platform. There were a number of BI tools participating, but they were the only data platform in that initial announcement. And so we thought, for this standard to actually take off, it needs to be interoperable among multiple data platforms so that customers ultimately have choice at the end of the day. And so, we work very closely with Snowflake. We're part of the working group that's now defining this standard and the implementation of what this standard looks like. And this is still the early phases, to be clear. This will take weeks and months to fully mature. But the intention, I think, is there. And you see widespread interest by multiple parties in the ecosystem to make sure that this standard ultimately gets defined and operates as a mechanism for us to share this semantic understanding between our respective platforms. So I think pretty much every BI tool is involved. I think dbt is involved. Snowflake's involved. Obviously, ourselves are involved. And with our data product functionality that I touched on earlier, our goal, our plan, is to make those data products completely OSI compatible, which means that essentially each BI tool is going to be able to read from these. You could use them on Snowflake in the same way that you could use them in Starburst, and vice versa. And I think that's ultimately going to be really important for customers at the end of the day who are building these agents themselves and need to rely on open standards and not build on a proprietary closed stack.
That's going to be just a humongous challenge. I think you probably would agree when we look at the past history of standards initiatives, that the most successful ones tend to be at the lower parts of the stack, and this goes up very high into where the value is. In other words, like, is my definition of customer the same as your definition of customer? I think we're going to want to come back to you, say, in about a year or so, because this is not the type of thing which is going to get where we're going to see a direction overnight. This is going to take at least a year to see if this is real or not. We'd love to come back to you then and basically pick up the conversation there.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting broadly to me. I feel like this new age of AI has introduced a lot of interesting competitive dynamics where people producing foundation models are also competing with their consumers. And so the whole dynamic around OSI is very interesting, but also very exciting, right? You have all these companies working together, but also competing at the same time, many of them. So I'm curious to watch how that unfolds. Anything else you'd like to talk about toward the end here, and then we'll close out?
No, I think, thank you guys for having me. I mean, we're super excited about what the future holds. And, I think the A word, as you said, Tony, agents are going to be driving a lot of it. What we're seeing with customers is really that AI offers the opportunity to replace BI in a lot of use cases. And I think that will be an exciting evolution to watch for all of us.
Right. Justin, thanks very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Great having a chance to catch up again. And as I said, we have another discussion coming in about another year, if not sooner.
If not sooner. Yeah. We'll follow up as the situation evolves.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Sounds good.